Hi, and welcome to another one-to-one thing, drop-in event, water cooler. It's bizarre. Every time I start this thing, it's kind of strange. I have a 15-second drop countdown to get me the link in the Facebook to the group. This goes live in LinkedIn if you're watching it here, and also in a Facebook group that I run, which is called the Managers Who Lead. And so Facebook being what it is, you always got to kick it off manually. But all that to say, welcome. Looking forward to having some people drop in. Usually, when this sort of goes live, people get reminded. I did send out invites pretty late today. They were just a few hours ago, but nonetheless, hopefully, a couple of the usual suspects may show up. But then again, maybe no one shows up and it's just me talking to my camera. But nonetheless, if you're seeing this, feel free to drop us a link. If you're on Facebook, Facebook group, there is a link to the Restream Studio. It's pretty straightforward. Just join it from that link, and I will invite you into the studio. If you have an issue, I'm just checking any threads and things that are going on right now. If you have any questions, just ping me in the chat, either on LinkedIn or um, Facebook, and I'll get you in as soon as I see it and can get you there. But nonetheless, what should I talk about? I'm just the one at the cooler by myself right now, but that's okay. I think for me this week, it's interesting. I did put a LinkedIn post together earlier this week to announce that this is my second week in the 12-week year. And it happens to coincide with the calendar year. So week 27 is my year three, and the second week of the 12-week year is my February. I keep giving air quotes because it's not really the month of February, but the week. All that to say that I was sort of prompted to remind myself, because February is the month of love, Valentine's, and all that stuff, that it's important for us to have an element of self love and really just appreciate or find time to appreciate things in ourselves. And the was that something came into my Substack feed and really just prompted me. The quote from um, Van Gogh, which is one of my favorite artists for various reasons, not just his art, but also his relationship with his brother. Um, that really kind of struck a chord with me, and Theo. And in terms of, if there is something in us in the future, it's in us now. And his analogy of wheat being wheat, even if it looks like grass to the townsfolk, really kind of struck a chord with me in terms of just recognizing that, if I'm carrying love today, for the future, then it's with me, it's in within me now. So it's important just to recognize that we've got to make time and appreciate where we're at. Life is tough, and sometimes we do tough things, and we have the wherewithal within us, and being able to appreciate that and also use it to spur us forward and to encourage others. I think a couple of the replies to comments was around giving from a um, we can't give from an empty vessel. We have to be filled with something in order to give it. And sometimes we don't recognize that we are filled with love and compassion as we share that with others. And also, we want to or ought to share that with ourselves and give ourselves the compassion and the love that we need. Um, it serves us better. It just makes for a it's the it's the lubrication of life. It just makes things go a little bit smoother um, when they don't have to be so grindy. But all that to say, really enjoyed the interactions with that post, and very much enjoying my 12-week year, my year three in the 12-week year process. it does take a while to really sort of hone in the habits, maybe the rituals and the beliefs and belief systems around operating on a 12-week year. And I'm enjoying it, especially working with a small cohort, having a collaborator in that space as well. Really does make this year in the 12-week year even more exciting. And I'm excited to have it open up to more people who are interested in either the process or just the the sprint or the track that we can sort of explore this together. You know, everyone's got their own goals, so this is not about sort of setting a standard goal for everyone to achieve, as much as understanding that there is a flow and a process around achieving goals, leaning on one's values and beliefs to make those happen. So definitely excited to have people in the future join us on future years in the 12-week year. So look out for that space. Reach out to me, DM me. Let's have a chat. Be lovely to do that. And also, talking about inviting for chats, I guess the other thing I want to talk about is that I met up or was in a group with another some podcasters, and one of them shared that they are launching their podcast today. His name's Cliff Kilmister. He's in the UK. He's south of me. Everyone's south of me. I'm in the north of England. But his podcast, it really focuses on parenting kids with ADHD, neurodiverse, um, and that's really really interesting to me. I actually want to invite my green room guest here. Carl is in the house. Carl, how are you? Oh, I, I added him and took him out again. One second. There he is. What's up?
How you doing, Steve?
There you are. There you are. Okay, that's my.
Yeah.
It's all me. It's I'm doing.
Ah, the-
I'm doing great. You're coming up through. One second. You're coming up through my speaker. Let me put you on my headset so that I can.
yeah. I'm always trying to turn you off on the other screen, and because I'm trying to listen in and think, well, I'm coming, so I know what you've been saying, and then it all goes wrong at my end when I'm trying to talk to you, and I can hear two Steves in one in each ear. Yeah. Where have you gone? You've disappeared. I can't hear you. I can see your mouth moving. I don't know if you can hear me. I can still see your mouth moving. Not me, is it? I think I'm okay. Can you hear me? Can you just nod if you can hear me? You can hear me. Okay. So yeah, I don't know what's happened. No, yeah, still can't hear you. Let me turn that up. Just let me check that it's nothing that's gone wrong at my end. Oh, it's you. Okay, okay, okay. Right, right. I shall keep talking. Keep your viewers entertained. They'll hear my voice, but they'll see your lips moving. No, still can't hear you. I am just checking my speakers just in case there's a. No, it's not that. That's okay. That's all working fine. My hype mic. And you can still hear me, Steve, can you? Not nod if you can hear me. I can't hear you. I, I can't hear you. I don't know what's going on. Let me know if you want me to leave and come back in. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. What if I take these off? Turn my volume up just for a sec. I'm just going to double check that. Yeah. That's all good. What is going on? It's definitely you. Okay. I shall put my earphones back in and I shall wait. Right. Okay. I'm going to listen on LinkedIn just in case I can hear you there. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's definitely your end, Steve. Oh, I'm here all on my own. It's the Carl Adamson Show. I'm sitting in for the fabulous Steve Wright. I know his voice is far more dulcet than mine, but there we go. What should we talk about? Let's talk about technical problems with Restream. Who's this coming into the show? There's someone called Steve Wright coming back in. I'm keeping the voice going just in case people are watching and laughing. You know, we're both technical. This is the funny thing. Steve and I are both really technical, seriously technical. You know, we're talking about, um, you know, M365 infrastructure stuff at, you know, enterprise level. And we can't even sort out a Restream call together. It's so sad, so embarrassing. I'm really sorry for this, folks. I've got no excuse. There's nothing I can say. I can see a box that says Steve. Is he back on LinkedIn? I'm just switching over to LinkedIn to see if I can. Oh, I think he's. No, it's just me, isn't it? Just me. Oh my word. Okay. Well, I'll keep talking. I think Steve was talking about goal setting. I'm sure I heard him say that, and he's doing his 12-week year. I think it is. And I remember reading that he was talking about being up to February. So it'll be interesting to see how he's getting on with that. Because Parkinson's law tells us that we expand our work to fit the time box that we're given. So if we're given a year, we'll take a year. If we're given a week, we'll get it done in a week. So it'll be very interesting to see how Steve is progressing with that, because I know he's quite keen to see the results of getting a year's worth of work. I think that's what it is, a year's worth of work in a 12-week period. But still no Steve. Let me just switch back to LinkedIn and see what's happening live over there. Surely it's not just me on the show here. That can't be true. Oh dear. It does seem to be just me. Well, I don't know whether to carry on talking or whether to leave and come back in. I think I'll leave and come back in just in case that fixes it. You know, switch it off and switch it back on again. That usually works for us techies.
Okay, I don't know if I'm back properly here. Let's have a look. I had to reset my machine. So for Carl, if you're around and you want to see if you can join back in. Oh, this is a nightmare. Let's see if Carl is messaging me right now. Let me just get my camera set up. And hopefully people can hear me. If not, it's going to be on the recording. But this is an interesting dynamic here that's going on. But nonetheless, I will move my camera a little bit. Let's join, add to the stream. Let's have a look, see if this has got him back in here. Carl, are you back?
I am. Can you hear me?
You are, and I. Hello. Can I hear you?
Hi, Steve. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. And
you can.
Yes, I can. I had to restart.
Right.
I had to restart Mac, which is
okay. I'm just gonna shut up all the other Steves because I've got you on Facebook and everywhere else apart from where I need you. Let me just.
Okay. Oh, my camera's all over the place here. But yeah. Oh dear.
Right. Okay. I think I've got.
You got me now?
I think I've got you.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's put you beside me here. And
yeah,
I've
gone into that unsynchronized mode, so I'm not going to look at me. I don't know if my voice is out of sync with you. Actually, that's a good point. Am I talking over you, or is the audio synced? It's just the video that's not.
I think you're not talking over me. Yeah, you're coming across. You're coming across in time, if you like. It's just that the video's having a hard time catching up. It's almost like when you're on a WhatsApp call, and if it's easier to actually just have audio, because of bandwidth, which is interesting.
I'm just turning off my VPN.
I may have to turn. So I may have to look at some of the other posts around issues with Restream to see if there's an ongoing thread here. I'm getting the pinwheel on my Mac, which is that's why I moved to Mac away from Windows, to avoid blue screens of death. Only to have one. And he's dropped. He's joining again. Here we go. Let's see if that works with the VPN. Are you good? I'll just put you in the same you were before.
I can hear you. I can see I'm out of sync. I've switched off my VPN, so I'm just coming in neat. And if I do a speed test, I've got enough bandwidth. I mean, I should have.
It may be a Restream thing. It might be it might be time to look at the Riverside option if it's a bit cleaner.
I'm just going to quickly hit speed test just to satisfy myself that it's working. So it'll probably kill this a bit, but I'm just going to quickly do that.
Okay.
Just so you've got some numbers to work with.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It's doing that now. I say there's no VPN running, so it's clean.
It does have the browser, the Restream browser does have because there's nothing local to my machine. I'm coming in through a browser to the Restream Studio. So there is a stream. Let me just make sure this is still running outside. Yeah, okay, still. There is a stream metric that it uses to sort of find. LinkedIn does the same thing, find the best.
Yeah, I've got 194 down and 96 up. It's about 10% of what I should have.
Wow.
So the Restream's obviously taking up a huge amount of bandwidth on my machine. That might actually explain quite a bit, because normally my speed will be, I'm connected on Wi-Fi directly to the router that's on my desk. I'm not hardwired into it, I should be. But
Okay.
normally I'd get about 800 up and down.
Wow.
And, I'm getting like just under 10%, just over 10% of that while this call is running. So not seen that before.
Huh.
Yeah, interesting.
When we talked and you hosted Restream, I'd be interested to see what the numbers were as the host.
Yeah, I might still have those.
So that would be interesting. Sorry for talking tech on the water cooler, but there you go. It's a car.
I hijacked the show. There I am. I came in as a guest. Yeah, you ran off to probably go and buy some donuts.
I thank you for that. That was awesome. Now you got a little inkling of the feeling that I get when I turn this thing on and go live to crickets, right? But you know what? It's a great exercise. It's a great muscle to exercise in terms of just walking up into the void. And it's all good. But you mentioned the 12-week year, and me talking about it being February, and it's I said your insight with regards to sort of the analogy to sprint and agile methodologies, really, it hit home in terms of understanding that side of it and the value of time boxing. So there's elements that really do make the 12-week year not just sort of a good idea, but it's founded in some principles that sort of make it work. And I do like adding the color of a year being a year, and thinking of the 12 weeks being 12 months, and even having a theme for each of the weeks that go throughout the year, almost like what we do in our regular calendar year. And also going, next January, I've said this before, but next January will be year 5 for me, not year 1. Sometimes people just sort of make it a 4-year cycle. My goal is to continue it, and January will be year 5, and then April will be year 6, and that sort of thing. So my goal is to actually I want to have 7 12-week years under my belt, in order to really evaluate where it's going, what it does for me, how it works, and invite others to join that journey. Whatever works in whichever format works for them. I think it will just be nice to have other people that sort of have that insight and come alongside it. So I'm excited for that. And it has worked. The time boxing, like you said, what you focus on, you get done. If you cut a sprint from 2 weeks to 1 week, you get stuff done. It's amazing what people can put into space when they recognize Parkinson's law is in play. They cut the chafe out. They buckle down. So that I think is really useful. I'm seeing that come back in terms of feedback of the month. I'm halfway through February now, and I'll be halfway through each month every time I have a drop in. So it'd be nice to sort of check in, at least start by sort of saying, hey, this is the month of whatever, and this is how it's going, and it's helping a lot just in terms of having that focus. So and then also I want to give you a shout out in terms of your insight, mentorship, and wisdom with regards to just some of the discussions we've had around value proposition, and just how you show up for your clients, and me being fortunate enough to have some of that insight as well. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Glad it's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a post about cake. I had a nice I had that Blue Mountain coffee. I don't know if your one tasted any good. You said you were
I haven't
It smelled
tried
a
it
bit
yet.
weird.
No, I haven't. I'm not that moldy one. I won't be trying that because
Oh,
I know that's moldy. You can smell that. But
right.
I've got another one that probably good. What? So how did you do yours? Did you do it in a percolator or
I do it
all
I do
over?
it in the mocha pot, the
Oh, right.
cafetiere.
Yep. Yep.
I like the cafetiere. It's yeah. My filtering is nice. It just takes longer. I think sometimes
Does.
just for getting a cup of coffee into the cup, the mocha pot is the quickest way for me to get sort of. Is it percolated? I guess it is percolated. It goes through the filter, the steam.
Yeah. But it's not percolated in the way that most people think it would be.
Yeah.
Where you've got the press. You've got the press coffee and the filter
Yes,
coffee,
the
and
French
most
press
people do
style.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like it. I like it in that if I need a cup quick, from bean to cup is 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It's real fast. And that's me
And
grinding.
you can put the water in hot. It doesn't have
I
to be
do.
cold.
I put
You do, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
A
it's
lot of
probably
people
less
don't realise
than
that.
3 minutes then. Yeah, because I boil the water while I grind the bean, and by the time the two of them are ready and it goes to the pot, it's coming through. It's coming through real quick.
But you don't want it to come through too quick because then it will be under extracted. So it's about playing with the heat. Maybe lift it from the heat, put it back, whatever works, because you don't want it to be under extracted because it'd be quite acidic if it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point because it does come through pretty quick. So because the water's already hot. I mean, the other thing is that coffee snobs here. Is that rather than having cold water, I don't know if that's the thing to have cold water in there. One argument is the bean stays too long. It takes. You want once the bean is ground, you want to get the flavor from the bean fairly quickly, but like you said, not too quick.
Yeah.
So
plain it does oxidize very quickly once you ground it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There you go. Did you check out the Wilfer grinder?
I read about it, but it's kind of been out. It's a bit outdated now. There's a lot of new tech around that's quite cheap. There's a lot of tech around that's quite expensive as well. But once you get into electric grinders, then you're into money. And the key thing is, a lot of people don't realize this. If you're on a budget, which most of us are, you should spend more on your grinder than you do on the coffee machine itself.
Yes,
which is interesting.
Yeah. I got that from following Hoffman's stuff.
Yes,
in the sense that it's about getting the stuff out of the bean, not necessarily the coffee machine delivering the cup. So it is interesting.
The cheap machines deliver as much as the good ones, or say 80%. So you can get a cheap espresso machine for about 150 quid, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you could be spending 5, 6, 7, 8,000 on one as well. Just the espresso machine, not the grinder.
Yeah.
Is that 8,001 that many times better than the £150 one?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I got exposed to, and it's interesting that I got exposed to the whole sort of I guess culinary coffee in terms of it not just being a beverage that you just drink, but something that there's a sort of a culinary experience to it in terms of its flavor profiles. It's almost like people getting into wines. You could sort of say, I drink a red, white, rosé, and that's as far as you go. And then other people take all the sorts of elements of where the grape was, how old the grape was, what the process is, and all that. And then sort of I was exposed to it through a virtual meetup at the company I used to work at in the States, Syverson, and it was lockdown, and we had a virtual meetup, and we were sent coffee and a Chemex jug, filter jug to use, and then we jumped on a call with this coffee connoisseur, and he sort of got us all excited into it. And I say that because it for me, the takeaway was when someone is passionate about something, it comes through. Even if you're not even interested in what they're passionate about, their passion
Yeah.
fuels your interest, you know. And you know, I was hooked from just the insights that he was sharing in terms of, like I said, profiles of flavors and where the bean comes from and whether it's mixed or not and so on. And then having the sort of the equipment and the environment set again, and again, environment is very important to experience. You know, if you've got a nice filter and you've got a nice bean and you put these things together, it just feels much more substantial than just picking up a jar of Nescafe. Sorry, Nescafe.
But it goes beyond the bean. You know, it goes beyond the origin. So you could have a single origin, you could have a multi-origin blend of beans. Then it comes down to the roast, because you've got to cook the beans, and you know everything about the roast. I mean, that's an art on its own.
Yeah.
And then the grind. I mean, if you've watched James Hoffman, you'll see, and Lance Hendrick, there are whole videos on YouTube dedicated to the grind and dialing in your coffee to the machine that you're using. And you know, people say, "Oh, I'll go to the coffee shop and I'll buy the beans. I'll get them to grind them and bring them home." No, because every machine, every espresso machine, or if you're using a mocha pot or whatever, it's different in the way it works. So you really need to have the grinder, you know, close to the machine so you can grind it, try it, make an adjustment to the grind to get it perfect. It's an art on its own. So as soon as you get into that, you know, there's the passion coming out. You know, we're just talking about grinding or roasting or origin of the beans or blend of the beans.
Yeah.
We haven't even drunk the stuff yet. So you can see the attraction for Nescafe or, you know, Gold Blend or whatever. You know, it's kind of easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, it's and again, all of that kind of fuels the so the meta process is dialing into that passion and recognizing that, you know, you can deconstruct things to see how to get an understanding of the process all the way through, and then that sort of fuels the interest as well. And I think some of that kind of marries into our coaching space. You know, I don't want to be a Nescafe coach. All right.
Oh, I like that. You should. There you go. There's a post for you. I don't want to be a Nescafe coach.
Nescafe coach.
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah. I mean, that would be a great.
I can make a note.
A great headline, a great hook to get people in.
Yeah. And, no disrespect to Nescafe.
Yeah, you might have to put a disclaimer on that.
Yeah.
You'll have a world-class action lawsuit against you.
I might just say instant coffee coach then.
Yeah, there you go.
Just to avoid any illusions of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because people will pick different instant coffees to choose, right? They'll choose a high-end instant coffee.
Yeah, very much so.
Versus one off the shelf. But so yes, that the whole point is that you can be an instant coffee person that just focus on the outcome. And have I ever drunk instant coffee? I can count the number of times I drink instant coffee. I'd rather not drink coffee if I'm somewhere. I'd rather drink a tea in that case, if it's going to be in a bag or than me drink a coffee. That's interesting too, because is that snobbery or is that just protecting one's palate, right? Or
yeah, well, if you find instant coffee offensive to drink, and that you know, a lot of people will hear that differently. They'll say, "Oh, coffee snob" and all that. But you know what you like. You know, why should you drink or eat something you know you don't enjoy? And it's pretending to be, you know, if instant coffee was saying, well, we're something else, you know, the fact that it's saying we're coffee and we're instant and it usually tastes horrible, then you best not to drink it and just politely say, I'll have water or a cup
Yeah.
of tea instead. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And,
nothing wrong with that.
and there's obviously there's a market for instant coffee, and
Huge.
maybe that's
Massive.
part of that niching or delineation that says I'm not an instant coffee drinker, therefore I wouldn't drink it.
But that's only come about in relatively recent times when people started making coffee at home, real coffee. In the UK, certainly. I don't know about in the US, because I get the impression that most people in the US have always made real coffee. They've always got real coffee beans or the grinds, and they make it properly. Whereas here we don't, or we didn't used to back in the 80s. You know, if you went anywhere, particularly to church, and you'd be invited back to wherever for a gathering, and out would come the instant coffee, and it was always grey and tasteless. And you know, how can coffee ever be grey? You know, I call that corporate coffee. That's the coffee you get in boardroom meetings, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just whereas, for show. Yeah, well, yeah, it smells like coffee, but it doesn't really taste that great. But yeah, so back in the 80s, it was very popular, instant. But I'm not so sure now. You know, with the advent of home grinding, you know, hand grinders and electric grinders, and you know, buying the actual coffee pre-ground and having a mocha pot or filter or whatever it is, that what is relatively new here in the UK is espresso. You know, coffee made with an espresso machine, which basically means a 9 bar, between 8 and 9 bar minimum. Because when you pressurize the brew, you get different oils released in the coffee than you would do if you're using a pour over, which has got no, you know, it's room, you know, it's atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
And even the mocha pot's only about 1 to 1.5 bar. So you don't get that same flavor from the same beans that you would do if you used an espresso machine, which is interesting. So there we go. We've talked about all the other stuff, and now we're talking about the brewing process and things down to pressure. People are going to be watching this. I mean, this could actually start a craze. You know, people say, you know, we're going to tune into the coffee show with Steve and Carl. Or they might just switch off and never come back again. So you can blame me if that happens.
Well, I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation because in many conversations that I have, there is a parallel. There's a metaphoric, you know, aspect to it, and the metaphor of understanding elements of coffee lends itself to coaching. It lends itself to the space where you know, there's an understanding of deconstructing the processes and elements of delivering a service or delivering an experience. Because in a sense, that's what coffee does. It delivers an experience.
Yeah.
And sometimes just knowing more about the process actually enhances the experience. You know.
Well, you're right there. Yeah. I discovered by accident that I was using a lot of behavioral science techniques in my coaching. And it was only when I started reading up on it, and I thought, oh, that's what it's called. I didn't know it had a name. And it's something you just do.
Yeah.
Which I think we all do. I think all of us do these things. We're putting these things into practice. And once you see it written down, then you can really lean into it and maximize the value that you get back from that, even though it's something you've done naturally. As soon as you know it's got a name and there's a strategy, there's a scientific research that's been done around it, and you say, I'm going to use that more, but I'm going to go deeper on this thing because I know now that I can and should. I think all of these things. Have you found that with coaching?
I have it, and it's that sort of that iterative effect. You do something, you assess it, you review it, and like you said, if it falls into a space where you it's given a name, you know, you've done something, like you said, almost you're unconsciously competent, and then you have to fall back to being consciously competent to actually understand what you just did and how it worked, and you go, and then now you get into another cycle that says, let me research why that worked or how that worked, or maybe how I can deliver it better or differently, or make it more appropriate to a circumstance. That only comes about when you're in conscious competence, not unconscious competence. Tying your shoelace is
Yes.
just tying your shoelace. You don't decompose, you don't deconstruct that. But when you do, you realize that, around the garden and through the hole, or rabbit ears, and all the things that
Oh yeah,
you
yeah. The old
tell kids
bowling
to do.
knots. Yeah, yeah.
There's
I had
lots
to
of
learn
ways to
that.
tie your shoes.
They're right. Well, I wouldn't do a bowling on my shoes, but yeah, I get exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah.
It was a conversation I had with Jeff Sutherland, who is the co-creator of Scrum. So I learned Scrum from him, and we were having a discussion about how long a sprint could be or should be, and you're allowed up to 1 month in Scrum. And so I was saying, well, this is my plan. I took in my project plan to build the Marine Data Exchange. It was a 1-year plan, and it was 12 sprints. I said, well, there you go, 1 sprint per month. And then he said, well, your plan's doomed to fail. I said, because a month is too long. Although you're allowed to have up to a month, you'll expand to fit the time. We didn't actually use the word Parkinson's law at that time. I said, well, how long do you think we should have? He said, 1 week max. Well, that's the length of your sprint, a week. And, I think I mentioned to you before, that's when he said, well, we're doing 1 week sprints with NASA, and that's rocket science. If you can't do that with SharePoint, go figure. But he was right. We found that by cutting down something that we thought at that time was going to take a minimum of 3 weeks into a shorter time box, we found a way of making it work. And so I think there is a lot in that with coaching, and it's worked so many times. And usually it's my number one technique when I go in to work with a team that's failing to deliver. I cut their delivery time down to 1 week from 2 or 3 or 4. So I think what you're doing with your 12-week year, you're going to see a rapid change in your delivery for the better.
Yeah.
You just will. So
yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, this is a general question, and you almost touched on it in terms of project management, that so many projects are over budget and over time. And to the extent where when somebody announces the project and gives it a number and a time, we automatically expect it to not deliver. I mean, that could be in our own sort of work world. It could be you hear something on the news. We saw it with HS2, the railway system. You see it in major infrastructure projects that are at a national or governmental level, and everyone stands up on the podium and says, we're going to do this by this time, and it's going to be great. And there's almost that visceral feel that goes, yeah, whatever.
yeah.
And I don't know what the question is. Why do we feel that? And part of me knows an answer. Well, the other part of the question is, why don't we shout from the rooftops when things are under budget and within time? Because there must be deliveries going on in that space.
Well, when we started the Marine Data Exchange project, no one had ever done it before. It was designed to be a 1 petabyte database, which even by today's standards is massive. And then guess what? I was the solutions architect, and I said, I know, let's do this in SharePoint. And of course, everyone just, they didn't just raise eyebrows. It was a really, it was so interesting. Microsoft involved themselves in the project because they wanted to see where it goes. Because back in those days, 1 petabyte, that's 10 times the size of a big bank that's running on SharePoint. To put it into perspective, and we were going to build this thing with 1 petabyte of storage in it running on SharePoint. At that time, I wanted to use something like a NoSQL database, with unstructured data, but it wasn't new enough then You know, it wasn't mature enough then to use on a project. So we had this, and I predicted it would have a 3-year life expectancy. And I made this clear at the beginning. But, you know, we went ahead and did it. If we'd done it as a project, you know, a normal project, and I project managed it because I was the project manager on the technical side, we would have gone over budget. We would have failed to deliver, but we actually delivered on time and within budget because we took a Scrum approach, but we had 1 week sprints. That was the thing. It was the 1 week sprints that got us over the hurdles, and Microsoft and the others came in at the back to see how we were doing it, and it was successful. So that's the thing. We don't call out these projects very often. They don't get the. I mean, we went on 2 UK IT Industry Awards. I mean, that's the Oscars of IT. You can't get any better than that in the UK. But the point I'm making is, if we break down our work into short sprints like that, we now focus on the most important deliverables, and all the fluff doesn't get delivered. The most important things that make it work with quality. It's not about knocking back quality. I'm a big one on quality, you know, especially with software. You can't build it without quality.
Yeah.
If you can, but if you can, you shouldn't, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I think we do need to talk about these things more. You know, I've spent many years as a project manager delivering projects in the traditional way, and yeah, they do overrun. They do go over budget. But when we did this, and we were very strict, we had discipline. You know, the D word was what we all lived by as a team. It just worked. So I think, you know, it'd be great if you start posting on your. I don't know if have you started posting on your 12-week year yet?
I haven't. I put that LinkedIn post this weekend. That was just kind of spurred by something that I read around the month of February. But some of the stuff coming out of this would definitely be useful to share in terms of what it is like to. Well, a part of it is changing the mindset of delivering within a time scale. And part of that mindset is, well, it's okay if it's okay to have slip, or we built in lag, or we built in things to accommodate, because things always slip. But in the same time, what you just said there is that D word. You know, there's 2 Ds. There's the discipline, and there's the discipline and the delivery. Without compromising quality. So in making sure that you understand what you're delivering, and that it has quality built into it, because the quality actually is your protection from, you know, or your sustainability element, right? It's not going to last without quality. Well,
you've got no. You're just building technical debt if you don't. You know, with IT, with certain products, you can get away with poor quality, but with IT you really can't, because as soon as you start building in poor quality, that's the foundation that you're building everything on. You know, all the stuff that's coming next month and 6 months time and a year's time, that's all sitting on top of it. So you have to build in quality. You don't really have a choice with software.
As you just said that, I lived in the States, so a lot of my political references tend to be US based, although I'm sure it applies to the UK government as well, whereby understanding, we call it technical debt, and I totally get where you're coming from working for a software company. You know, don't build it today on the back of work tomorrow. You know, it should stand on its own today and be good tomorrow. But we see a lot of behaviors and projects even built today with the promise of it being better tomorrow, but it isn't. It's not good today. And you end up with that debt being paid forward. You know,
you do. Yeah.
That is.
It's a big thing. I know so many companies. Even recently, I heard about a business that launched something that wasn't tested, and it was overridden by the CTO. And we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Got to release it. Went out. Suddenly, the brakes have been put on, and there are all kinds of problems with not just with clients, but with compliance and all of that. Well, how do you fix that once you've released a mess? Sometimes it's easier. I mean, many times in software development, I've had to throw away software and just rewrite it simply because it was quicker. Every time you spend debugging it and then you've missed something in someone else's code. So quite often that's the case. And you don't want to get into a situation like that when you've released something into live and then suddenly you've got to refactor it, rewrite it. You just don't want those kinds of problems while it's still trying to, deliver what it was supposed to deliver and failing to do that.
Yeah. So again, that's the metaphors are thick and fast for me in terms of being able to deliver with quality, and have the discipline to understand what is the deliverable, and maybe even the other D is kind of designing that outcome, or defining that outcome clearly.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you don't start with that definition crystal clear, then you're already building in the unknowns. You're building in the questions around debt, paying that forward. You're building in the questions around what is a quality metric. And this sounds kind of very mechanical, and obviously we're talking about it in a project management or a technical standpoint, but I think some of those things also relate to just in terms of the coaching journey. I always tie it back to coaching because that's what we do. That's what we do in this space, and I'm even more so mindful of how that how it shows up in this skill set. So having clear, making, again, another D, the decisions to define and to have the discipline to deliver. Can't think of any more D's you can put in there.
Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, all of those things are really key when you discern who you work with, right? Because there is, I always say that it's, the coaching space it's a low barrier to entry, but it's a high bar. It's a high bar to quality or excellence.
Yeah.
So it's important to have sort of those, I said, those disciplines or that experience to recognize.
Especially when you're working with others, and there are a lot of issues when you're working with teams, things that you might not be aware of. The goal is to deliver the product, but you've got the interpersonal relationships, you've got skill sets which may need to be improved to deliver something. Surely because it's often new technology and ground that hasn't been trodden before. So there's a lot of things that come into play, and how we deal with them, and how we show up as a coach is really important, because sometimes that's all the team has as the beacon of light that they're trying to get out of this storm from. They're looking at this beacon and saying, well, you got to help us find a way out, the way forward. So, but that's exciting. I mean, that is really where you can get the benefit of being a coach, the reward of seeing people find their way through that and come out the other side as, the successors, the successful ones, the winners. That's brilliant.
Yeah. That is key. That is key. It maybe reminds me of, one of the goals of leadership, I guess, is to provide clarity. I'll just say that it's the clarity that you bring to a situation that, like you said, could be in a mire, or people aren't clear as to where to look, or they lean on their own skills and dismiss other people's skills within the team, for example, and they're coming from a place of what they know as opposed to what the collective team can build as an outcome or a goal for the team, and leadership bringing clarity, or coaching bringing clarity, is is a is a real key skill, I guess, or attribute to that team moving forward. When people are clearer, I know personally, when I'm clear about something, it's a very different path to when I'm not clear.
Yeah, because in many ways you're the rudder for the ship, and as a leader, and I'm sure you've read the book "Turn the Ship Around" by David Marquet, and he was in a position where he had no technical knowledge of the particular ship because they changed the ship at the last minute, and he'd read up, so he knows every single nut and bolt on every ship that he commands. And suddenly they said, "Oh no, mate, you got
Different
this
ship.
lot, the worst ship in the fleet, the Santa Fe," and so he had no choice but to be clear with his crew and give them the autonomy to lead.
Yeah.
So each person became a leader in their own right. And it's a fascinating thing. I mean, I know you know the story, but for anyone that's not listening, it's a great book to read. There's so much you can learn about true leadership from a man like that. And at the end of the day, he was the captain of a nuclear submarine. It might have had the worst crew in the fleet. I mean, you couldn't really make up a worse nightmare, could you?
But in a
nuclear
tube,
submarine. Yeah, well, exactly.
nuclear powered tube.
Yeah, and but he did it, and he just by really focusing on giving them the autonomy and the trust, but making sure that there was clarity both ways.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really important, and that was his second book. I think Leadership is Language. I think that was the second, but I've got both of them, and he kind of built on it from what he learned with writing Turn the Ship Around and going through that experience himself. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And something you said right there is that the clarity is both ways. The autonomy, giving that autonomy to those that are closer to the issue, which is what was his skill, and at the same time ensuring that clarity of purpose or vision was understood in both directions. I know personally I've seen it whereby someone's kept the clarity obscured. They've obfuscated, big word.
Yeah.
They've obscured what the intention was or what the vision was, and feeling that was their key to power. And it's a do as I say, not as I do sort of mindset, or do it this way, without any understanding of why it should be done that way and what the outcome or what the purpose is of doing it this way. And then people then sort of crave that clarity, and they crave that purpose in a task or in a role, in a job, in a function, because that allows them to have the autonomy to sort of say, oh, I can, if I know where we're going, I can possibly add some input. And often they're in a position where they're seeing things that other people in the organization don't see. So to not have that input be brought into the process is actually just hampering the whole organization.
Well, this is the importance of doing the Gemba walk. Have you heard of that? The Gemba walk?
The Gemba?
GEMBA. And it's essentially what they, comes from lean manufacturing, where the managers, the leaders, leave their offices and they go and walk the floor and understand from firsthand what's going on. But you do need to have a certain element of psychological safety in order for that to work. So rather than the workers feeling, oh, the boss is coming, stand up straight, and we're being watched, it's about the boss is coming, maybe he can help us, or maybe she can help us. And that's the difference. And for an agile leader, it's never when can I have it, it's how can I help. And that's really, really important. And I've worked with many agile leaders and some that don't even profess to be agile, but that's the way they rock up for work. And you know what? The teams have gone beyond the call of duty to work overtime, unpaid, to get things done, and they enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Surely because you've got a boss that cares.
Mm.
And a boss that also shows, we talk about mastery, autonomy, purpose, Dan Pink's book,
Yeah.
Drive. I've always argued that, yes, they are huge motivators, but there's one that I see is even bigger, surely from experience, and that's recognition.
Mm.
And the recognition that the team got was sometimes, well, it was a minimum of a thank you. They didn't get more money. They weren't bought presents, but it was always a thank you, and a sincerely delivered thank you. The boss would go out of their way to come up and thank someone for what they've done in front of everyone. And we all knew it was genuine. It wasn't kind of an act put on.
Yeah.
That's why the team went out of its way. Every single member of that team, it was like having two teams. Completely, there were about 30, 40 people in that team, but it was like having 80 people because they were doing double the work and getting double the delivery that they should have done, surely because they went to the nth degree to work for the boss. And it wasn't stressed.
Right.
It wasn't forced work. Often, he'd come and ask me, can you do this thing? And I'd show him the Kanban. And in fact, I taught the service desk to do this. He'd go and ask the service desk, can you just do this thing for me? It's a quick favor.
Yeah.
And they'd say, yes, certainly. Here's the Kanban. Which baby do you want to throw out the pram? And as soon as he saw that, and then he'd say, thank you, I get it. And then he'd go off. And I remember I caught him writing some JavaScript. I said, what on earth are you doing? You're the boss. He said, well, my team are busy. This thing needs to be done, so I'm going to do it myself. I said, plus, I could do with a refresher because he hadn't written code for about 20 years. That is what a real boss is like. And I've often thought of calling him out on LinkedIn, and because obviously he's still on, because he's brilliant. And every time I've spoken to people, I haven't worked with these people for 15 years now, some of them, and they all talk about the old days working with this particular manager. And we didn't do it for the business; we did it for him.
Yeah,
there you go.
That is, and the power, like you said, the Daniel Pink's the MAP, the mastery autonomy, purpose, and recognition. It reminds me of just the gratitude coach Kevin Monroe.
Kevin, yes,
in terms of the power of being seen. And being seen for who you are, being seen for what you do, and being seen for the value that you bring. And those things they're valuable intangibles, or invaluable intangibles, right? But they make such a difference. And unfortunately, and I, as a parent, I'm sometimes guilty of this. My kids can sometimes be seen for the wrong things. They show up on my radar.
I think all kids are like that. Mine were no exception. Yeah.
They show up on the radar for the wrong things. But but if you can build in that mindset, that expectation to Ken Blanchard said this beautifully, in the 1 Minute Manager series, catch them doing something right, doing right. And that is key. The fact is that you expect to see right behavior, if you like, or right perspectives, and you make that extra step to recognize it, and to call it out. It goes a long way. People think it's hard work to operate that way. When in actual fact, it's like we just talked about. It's removing technical debt. It's removing the stuff down the pike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The gratitude and recognition are closely related. And I know Kevin Monroe often talks about demonstrating gratitude. It's not just being grateful, but outwardly showing that you are. And that's exactly what this manager was like. And it was it's a good thing to see, and it's so uplifting to experience. It really does change the morale in people when they can see you are genuinely grateful for what they're doing, and you appreciate them. And this is something that many people that they're in jobs that they hate, because they don't feel appreciated.
Mm.
You know, that's this is a big thing there that every manager can overcome simply by changing their behavior and demonstrating their genuine gratitude for what their people are doing.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned behavior there, and obviously behavioral analysis is a big thing in terms of what your journey and what you do. And it's changing one's behavior. The prerequisite to some of that is to look at what we've talked about this before on some of your posts in terms of belief. You've got to believe differently in order to behave differently.
Yes.
So the expectation of catching and doing right is a belief that says they will do something right. It's now for me to show up and act with the expectancy of catching and doing something right, which ties into a value. You value that everyone intrinsically has the capacity or the ability to do right, and therefore you have that value fuels your belief, and then your behavior follows to sort of say, I want to look for it.
Yeah, because it is about mindset, and the mindset does influence the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also discovered that behavior influences the mindset. And a lot of coaches have said to me, Carl, you can't go and work with them because they're anti-agile. There's no way you're going to coach them and talk to them and help them to come around to your way of thinking. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. And what I managed to do, using the principle of commitment and consistency, I got them to take one small step. And they did that reluctantly, some of them, but they agreed to do it. And when they started seeing the result of those one small steps, their mindset changed, because you can't argue with the proof that's in front of you. They say the proof of the pudding's in the eating. When you're eating it and it tastes good, and you say, well, actually, this is better than I thought. Yeah. And so it's interesting. Sometimes it takes a change in behavior to invoke a change in mindset.
Yes.
And yet most coaches will 100% disagree with that. And I mean, I can't disagree with it, even if I wanted to, because I've done it and I've seen the results time and time again. You can't argue with that.
Yeah.
So that's a topic on its own. Yeah, it really is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? As an organism, we are environmentally informed. We have to understand our environment in order to respond to it. If it's cold around us, we shiver. If it's hot around us, we sweat. So there is an element of behaving in accordance to the environment that you find yourself in. So if you put someone in a position where they are consistently committed to a small change, then you're actually creating an environment in which they are now have to lean themselves into, however small, right? Give me a 5-minute report at the beginning of the day for what you're going to do. Why do I have to do that? And then all of a sudden you realize that all of those 5-minute reports add up to really tangible, valuable things that help the project move smoother or better or whatever. So we respond to our environment, and it's that ability to respond that really shows us in our mindset that we can change, because something new comes up, novel, and we like novelty. I'm the first shiny syndrome, and novelty picks that interest, and we behave differently to it. So speaking of novel, I just ordered a hand pan. Total segue shift right there. A hand pan is the dome, like a steel drum.
Oh, really?
The concave.
Yeah.
The convex one where you use your hands on the top. So I would be. It arrives next week. I got it on Amazon. I got it on Amazon deal Prime Days or whatever. So
yeah. Oh,
I don't know why I'm plugging Amazon, but there you go. But why am I saying that? Because it's a shiny object. It literally is shiny because it's steel. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you bring something into your environment that triggers a change in behavior, and it can inform or does inform your mindset. I'm loving percussion. I play cajon at least 3 times a week publicly, which is
Wow.
really cool. So and the sound of the handpan is very meditative, so it may be something I may use internally just to kind of chill, but also potentially sort of perform with it as well. So
Wow.
it was just
So next week's Watercaller, we're getting a live concert with the handpan.
I may record something. Well, I'll probably just record me going through the scales, because that'll probably all I can do for the first couple of weeks, is just make sure I'm striking it correctly, make sure the thing's in tune, because it's not the high end ones have thousands of pounds, and this one is not one of those. So as long as it comes out the box and it's in tune, then I'll keep it. But I've seen reports that sometimes the cheaper models get out of tune fairly easily. So that's the first thing. But yes, to answer your question, that's me behaving differently and changing my mindset.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's a great thing, and you could introduce that into your coaching. It's a talking point. It's an icebreaker if you're, giving a talk on something as well. People will be fixated on this thing that you've got and what you're going to do with it, and you're breaking down barriers by doing that. And I think you really could utilize something like that quite well, because it's unusual. I've never heard of one or seen one.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that live concert next week as well.
Are you calling me? This is you calling me out, trying to change my behavior.
Yeah, I'm going to be posting about it every day this week, just to make sure I don't miss the concert. I'll be selling tickets. So
it arrives on the 14th. It arrives on the 14th. So it might well be. I may well start my drop-in event with a little...
you got to bring it. So if you don't, then if I'm on next week, then I'll be asking you, where is it? You wish I had said that now. Live.
Carl, it's always a pleasure. We've gone over time because I lost some time with that.
Yeah,
thank you for filling in.
Word. Yeah, no, it's been fun.
I'm gonna have to carve this up for it's live now, but I'm gonna carve this up and take out the technical issue.
Yeah, take out all my mumbling.
Yeah, I'll share. I want to share this one with you. I'm saying out now. I want to share this content with you because we touched on some really interesting points with regards to just how we show up for clients, how we show up in the world. What are the things that we lean on as discernment, in terms of understanding, deconstructing and understanding the process, so that we can be better practitioners of it for ourselves, and that we can also deliver, with discipline and discernment and all the other D's that we mentioned, for people in our space. So always a pleasure, man. I'm grateful for you eternally. Good guy, and just really appreciate you stepping in and taking the frame for a little while there as well.
Yeah, no, likewise. It's always a pleasure talking to you, with or without technical glitch. And I think the biggest problem, as I said before, we always overrun when we start talking. So we better let people go away and do what they need to do now. But it's been a pleasure.
There you go. Yeah. And I've got that post. It's not cake. It's an apple pie. I don't know if that qualifies as cake.
Okay. Well, as long as that's fine. As long as it's got a picture of it, I'm all for that. So I'll be looking out for that. All right. Take care. God
bless you. Thank you, Carl. Take care. And thanks everyone for checking in. I will edit this so that we get some of the dead space out as well. All right then.